Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our May Pitchmasters workshop. My name is Lisa Friedlander from Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, and we are super excited to present Pitchmasters along with our partners, Maryland Tech Council and SeedSpot. We have one or two exciting entrepreneurs joining us today. I would love to turn it over to Anthony Millen, who is the founder of Next, who will introduce Next, and then we'll have our partners introduce themselves, and lastly, our phenomenal guest judge, Hall Martin from 10 Capital. So at the moment, I'll turn it over to Anthony.
Great. Well, it's great to be here with everybody today. Next is an innovative new model for delivering legal services to startup and emerging growth companies for their full life cycle. Next offers predictable legal fees through productized legal services offered through both preset and custom packages. And we provide access to senior attorneys in a very hands-on, high-touch approach to legal service delivery. And we integrate technology to make the whole experience of legal services much more collaborative, much more transparent, and much more efficient. We also building an ecosystem for startups that covers both access to investors and education around key areas that are important to startup companies. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Anthony. Lauren, you want to introduce yourself and SeedSpot?
Hey everyone, my name is Lauren Mcdaniel, VP of Strategy and Growth at SeedSpot. SeedSpot is a nonprofit that incubates social impact businesses, entrepreneurs within their first 0 to 2 years who are excited to make the world a better place through businesses of any kind. So excited to be here and meet our entrepreneurs on the line today.
Thanks so much, Lauren. And Brad from Maryland Tech Council.
Yes, I represent the Maryland Tech Council. We are the largest trade organization in the state that supports the technology and life sciences companies. We're pleased to be a sponsor of Pitchmasters, and I'm looking forward to hearing this. And I realize that I am blue, and I don't know why that is. So,
Brad, we don't want you to be blue. We don't want you to be blue.
And thank you, Pam, also here representing Maryland Tech Council. So thank you guys for long-standing partnership. And Brad, we will take you blue or otherwise. And last but certainly not least, our guest judge who has been with us before on Pitchmasters, Hall Martin from 10 Capital Group. Hall?
Yes, thank you guys for having me. My name's Hall Martin. I'm with 10 Capital. We're based out of Austin, Texas, but we work around the country and we help startups find investors, and we focus primarily on putting together a good presentation. So looking forward to your presentations today and glad to give you feedback on how it might come across. Thank you guys for having me here.
Fantastic. All right. Well, without further ado, David, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourself, your company, and start your pitch.
Great. Well, it's nothing like being thrown into the fire here as going from first or second to first and all that stuff. So I will share my screen and tell me if you can see it.
We can.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your time and allowing me the opportunity to introduce Data Licensing Alliance. Our tagline is "We make AI smarter." And we are a marketplace that makes it easier for data scientists to license data for their AI drug discovery efforts. So just like Amazon matches somebody selling t-shirts to somebody wanting to buy t-shirts, DLA will match buyers and sellers of STEM data. So for the past 22 years, I've been licensing data, and my clients use AI machine learning to lessen the time for drug discovery from decades to weeks, saving millions or even billions of dollars in the process. So just imagine if a drug to cure cancer could be found in weeks instead of decades, at a fraction of the cost. Now, wouldn't that be awesome? But with an ever-increasing amount of data produced in the world, people believe that managing the magnitude of all the data is a problem. I'm telling you it's not. The problem is that data is likely undiscoverable or inaccessible. It is just too hard to get access to all the relevant data. So based on my 20 years of experience, I know that data licensing is way too inefficient because it is time consuming, costly, disaggregated, and it is locked in silos. Our solution makes licensing data much more efficient. By automating over 70% of the steps in licensing, we have increased the efficiency by 6x. And as a source of aggregated data, our collaborative platform will allow us to create, own, and market supplemental derivative data sets. So on our platform, a data scientist would search for a specific data set, such as an image of arm fractures, add it to their shopping cart, accept the appropriate license, pay the applicable fees, and receive their data to be used in training AI algorithms or deriving information and knowledge from the data. Excuse me, I'm sorry, what's happening here? So the opportunity is we're really at an inflection point where subscriptions and licensing is going to be decoupled from each other. So subscriptions are for humans to read and licensing is for machines to mine. And licensing data to be used for AI machine learning will soon overtake subscriptions for human consumption. Moreover, data owners are sitting on a gold mine of data that they are realizing has significant value, but they don't know how to monetize. So why now? I'd say the environments are right, not environment, but environments. There's a massive pull forward around digital transformation and broad-based digitization post-COVID-19, especially at most medium and large-sized companies. There's the business environment. Publishers need new revenue streams. Researchers want to monetize data, as I've said, and data scientists and AI companies need that data. There's the regulatory environment. There's increased government encouragement, funding, and even mandates for AI to reduce bias and increase diversity. There's a technological environment. The low cost of storage and low cost to operate and high availability of complementary technology is being specifically developed for AI machine learning. And lastly, the marketplace environment. You know, marketplaces are now where people are going to transact. And our particular marketplace has super high margins, no inventory to hold. So while our marketplace is applicable for any data and any use case, we are initially focusing on STEM data for drug discovery. This is over a $200 billion market, and the funding for AI and drug discovery has grown over 3,800% over the past 5 years to $2 billion. And this growth is fueled by data scientists licensing data such as medical journals and chemical databases for use in the initial drug discovery stage of a drug through to its approval. We do have competition. However, we have strong competitive advantages, which I'll talk more deeply about in a second. But we have a clear and thorough understanding of the licensing process and first mover advantage, coupled with unique and comprehensive data sets to multiple constituencies will really set us apart. So what are they? We have unique and exclusive data rights, have really created a competitive moat, such as FHIR and FISR formatted data sets. We have extensive expertise in licensing STM/scientific content for and all relevant industry sectors, including corporate, academia, and government. We have the trust of partners based on over 3 decades of collaboration and trust, a world-class technical team, which I'll talk about in a second, relevant relationships at all the right levels, and a thorough understanding of the entire data licensing process, combined with a collaborative platform for buyers and around data. So in a short amount of time, we've completed our MVP and associated marketing site. We've completed the load of our first set of data. We have our first set of partnerships, leveraging prior clients like the American Medical Association, and in discussions with our first set of target accounts, like my client AstraZeneca. Our team and I, we've had 5 successful exits and over 155 years of combined experience. As senior executives in the STM publishing industry for the last number of decades, we've created and managed industry-leading products and services and have a deep and significant relationship doing exactly the activities we've built. We have a deep and wide range of relevant advisors in all areas of business. I highlight that we have strategic advisors who are also our target customers, like Amgen and John Wiley and Sons, and are supported by our law firm, Cooley. We will achieve revenue momentum by capitalizing on 3 synergistic revenue streams: transaction fees, derivative data fees, and consulting services fees. So with this, we're projecting $900,000 at a 20% margin in 2022. And by 2024, we're projecting $80 million at a 30% margin as we develop more mature products and relationships, create more company-owned products and services that lead to bigger deals and increasing deal flow. So we plan to solve the go-to-market puzzle and profitably acquire new customers at scale by acquiring customers through entrenched targets. We're going to do that. We say it's easy as ABC or 1, 2, 3. 1, we're going to leverage sellers who have entrenched customer base. We will use them to leverage for initial customer targets. B, we're going to leverage existing clients from insiders and advisors, as I've already mentioned. And C, we're going to attract buyers via our social media, speaking engagement, and our newsletters. We've raised $600,000 to date in our first round, and we're now raising our second round of up to $2 million to do 4 key things. We're going to activate 5 core sellers, capture 5 of the top 20 pharma, have users from 50 universities, and have 50,000 month-over-month active users. We plan to exit to a strategic investor within 3 to 4 years at $100 million. This target is a 10x multiple to the current valuation of this round and equates to roughly 1.25x on 2024 projected revenue and a 4x multiple on EBITDA. Lastly, I'd like to close with a little bit about our vision. We consider ourselves the modern day Levi Strauss. We plan to sit at the entrance to the new mine, a world exploding with opportunities unleashed by the confluence of new technologies, big data analysis, and the need for countless users of data. And we will sell them all pickaxes and shovels. While I'm sure that there are going to be many winners and losers in the AI battle, data scientists and the organizations they work for all need data to fuel their algorithms and machine learning activities. So with that, are you ready to join the alliance to make data more accessible for scientists curing disease? If so, you can pull out your phone, scan that QR code at the bottom, and we'll be connected. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. That was a great presentation. Just FYI for your own, it was about 8.5 minutes, maybe a little bit more, just in case you need to know
that's perfect.
Time constraints for a future. But love to kick off the feedback with our guest judge, Hall. I'm going to put you on the spot to go first, if that's okay.
Sure. No, I thought it was a great presentation. I deal with a lot of startups, and I would say over half of them have the vision of monetizing their data. And so we're coaching them to put a roadmap slide in there to say we're building a service today, we're doing data, in a couple of years, and then we're going to be putting AI on top of that down the way. But as far as your presentation goes, it looks like a great marketplace. There are fairly mature marketplaces in the life science space, especially around the EMRs. I'm not that quite clear on the biotech side of it, therapeutics, where you're talking about stem cells. Is that a mature marketplace or is that an immature marketplace?
Great question. So we're not talking about stem cells. We're talking about STEM as in science, technical, and medical data.
Okay, great. So that's broader than I thought, but do you have a beachhead market that you're planning to go after to get those first 5?
Right. So again, we're looking specifically to companies involved in drug discovery. So those are the large pharma, of which we have several clients in my consulting business. And also we have entrenched customer base, as I mentioned, through the supplier side of it. So that would be all the all the science and technical medical publishers that are currently selling subscriptions to those same targets.
Okay. So the two questions I had was one around market and the other was around monetization. In a market slide, you usually put the total available market, what you could ever do with your technology, which is a multi-billion-dollar number. Then you have your serviceable market, which is really the market you're going after, the subset that you really want to build for. And then you have your beachhead market. Beachhead market is the first 5 to 20 customers that you're going to go after, just to show you have a point of entry into the marketplace. I misunderstood the word STEM, but I would come up with a market slide that talk about TAM, SAM, and then what I call the beachhead market. Everybody wants to know you're going after a very large market, and I don't think it'd be hard to lay your hands on some very big numbers here. But what would be really helpful is to show what those first 20 customers are, to show how you're going to get in the market so you have initial traction. And if you're taking them from your consulting group, that would be great. I'd put 5, 10 logos up there of your beachhead market and then close with, oh, by the way, we're already talking to these guys and they like what we're doing and they're going to buy our stuff. Something like that to show that you know where you're going to enter the market and get going with it. The other one was monetization. You talked about the world's moving from subscription to licensing, but I didn't quite get a full sense that is there a recurring revenue play here where people need to pay a subscription fee to join the marketplace, and then on top of that, they pay licensing? Or is it just purely licensing that you're going to be doing in the marketplace and maybe taking transaction fees? What's the monetization model here?
Yes, that's a great question. And if I may, sorry, if you can see that screen.
Yeah.
Yes, we are strictly working off of 3 different revenue streams. It's transaction fees, derivative data fees, and consulting services fees. So it ends up being recurring revenue, but they're not locked into recurring revenue like a subscription model. It is a year-over-year subscription. And so once they stop paying the license fee, they stop having access to the data. But it ends up being a recurring revenue. But from a revenue perspective, it's all about transactions. So, the main thing at the moment is about transactions, excuse me. So there's 20% fees on the transactions of data, but then we will also be charging additional fees for creating derivative data sets. And then lastly, there will be consulting services fees on top of that. So we will not have the world's data on our marketplace, but we have the ability through bespoke services to go after that data on a one-off basis on the one side. On the other side, they're both buyers and sellers that need massaging of the data to be put into their own systems, whether that is conversion fees or other types of data manipulation services.
Have you thought about putting that under a recurring revenue? You talked about an alliance. That was my third question. What exactly is the alliance? Is that a consortium where people have to pay a recurring fee to join to get inside? And then from there, they pay additional fees for specific things that they need. But you might want to put some exclusivity on it and charge a subscription fee just to get on the platform. Make sure you're dealing with serious people, because there's a lot of not very serious people in the world that you don't want to deal with. And then the recurring revenue really makes your deal that much more interesting to investors because you've got that revenue stream. And it sounds like you have a consulting group that can pretty much manage what comes through the door in getting their data together. We see a lot of people very, very much struggling to figure out how to structure their data, how to get their data up there. What level of data does it need to be? Is it raw data? Is it analyzed data? Is it further up the stream? And there's again recurring revenue fees to help people do that with their data. So it sounds like there's an opportunity to do some subscription in here as well. And what do you think about making an actual consortium out of this, where it's a branded consortium that people have to join to get in?
Well, that's an interesting idea. We, in the initial term, we're really trying to generate as much traction as we can, and our targets, pharma. We all probably know instinctively, but you probably know more than most, is that having a consortium of pharma, there's a lot of anti-collusion. They don't want to perceive of being working together on anything. And so we feel that having it as more of a marketplace that is open. And by the way, an open marketplace as opposed to exclusive. And I understand your idea, but internally we talk about turning buyers into sellers and sellers into buyers. So what ends up happening is that we would sell theoretically to a university, but we actually also want to sell to the individual data scientist in a lab at the University of Saskatchewan, as an example, who just has a small data set need versus a large university or a large pharmaceutical that needs super comprehensive. So we have a marketplace that is flexible to be the individual and the institution in multiple different constituencies.
Okay, that's great.
Great.
Good idea there. My third comment was around the traction slide. You had the vision of you've raised 600K so far, and then now you're going to raise $2 million
Yes, sir.
there. And so you're trying to achieve 5 core sellers, 5 top pharma. But with your consulting group, it sounds like you already have some traction here already. And if you could put that under the 600K, I raised 600K, and here's what I've done with it so far, or where I am today, that shows where we already have some things going here, maybe some initial customers, maybe some initial, things primarily coming from your consulting group. Do you have anything you can put down there to show you're not starting from zero, you're starting from this point?
I would love to, but I don't want to be misleading. I mean, I've been in I have had a consultancy for the last 17 years. This is not that. And so I'm switching from that to this because it's a matter of scale. A consultancy is a different animal.
Right. But you've got those relationships there. I want to get credit for the fact that you're not coming in cold. This slide kind of leads us to believe we have nothing. And then after $2 million, we're going to have 5 core sellers. But I think you're further along than that from the consultancy. And so one idea is you can put logos up above the 600K saying, today we have relationships with these groups. We've done work with them. If you don't want to put a revenue number, just put the logos up there to show that we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from a position of strength here, because when we go out, we're already talking to people we know, not trying to get in the door of these other companies that we want to sell to. I don't know, you can decide that how you want to position that, but one thing I find investors want to know is, where are we today? But I don't want to oversell it, but I don't want to undersell it. And if you don't put the logos up there, I think you're underselling it. I think you have more of a relationship, which is one of the biggest challenges in sales. You've already got that under your belt. And so I would get credit for that.
That's a great comment. Thank you so much. I mean, I did try to identify it a little bit more softly in this slide, where I did talk about the American Medical Association and clients like Amgen and AstraZeneca. And I could probably use logos because I may have talked too fast through that, knowing that Lisa, I only had a few minutes, although I'm sorry, I'm taking more than I'm allotted now, and I really appreciate that. But very valid concept. I would also argue, there's a lot more that I could say depending on how much time I had allotted in a speech. But one of the things that we're doing is we're leveraging our existing buyers. So the fact is, organizations like the American Society of Hospital Pharmacists here in Bethesda, we're in the process of signing them up. They have multi-million dollars worth of insurance clients and pharmaceutical clients that are all their clients, and they're giving the plan is that they will give us all their subscriber base. So it's far wider than even what you just suggested, but I'm very leery about not selling too hard, because you have that problem of underselling and overselling, and where's the right mix, and doing it over Zoom it's hard to judge the crowd.
Sure,
Well,
understand that. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, let's keep it moving if that's okay. And I'll call on Lauren next. If you want to give your feedback to David, that would be great.
Thank you, Hall.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought your delivery was really strong. You're a really professional speaker, and I don't know if it's something that you've kind of developed over time or it comes naturally, but it definitely comes out. And just a quick win. I think your camera setup is really great with your background. The only thing I would suggest is I keep wanting to see you a little bit closer. So if you're doing Zoom presentations, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I can't get any closer to my desk than I can right now, but I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. So I agree with a lot of what Paul said. I think the thing that you really, one of the things that you really have going for you is your experience and your kind of place in this industry already. And I think there are some opportunities for you to really leverage that expertise, especially for an audience that may have a mixed kind of exposure to this industry. I'll speak for myself. I'm not sure others on the line. My husband's a data scientist, but outside of like hearing one-ended conversations from his Zoom calls, I am not as familiar with the industry. And my advice always to folks who have, maybe more of a technical facing product is to spend a little time at the beginning of your pitch, just doing a little bit of audience education. And this accomplishes, I think, a couple of things. One, it solidifies you as an expert in the industry, and it tees us up to really understand like how great the solution is, because we have a little bit of context around the problem. So what I would suggest is in the beginning, kind of walking us through like what's the industry standard process for this. So for example, we're using this for medicine, for responding to disease and creating solutions in the medical field. So how is that typically done? I love the line that you said at the end, data scientists all need data to fuel their algorithms. So, just a little breadcrumb in the beginning, when there's a data set of XYZ, here's how effective or here's how long it may take for a drug to come to market. If we're able to get, 50% more data or 50% more diverse, here's the results of that in the industry. The way that happened, the way that we can bring that to bear is XYZ, just giving us a little bit of context up front. So that was my first suggestion was kind of the use case customer's journey. Here's how things typically happen. And then the second way that I'd like a little bit of education is that sales process. So, right now, here's how pharma companies are accessing their data. Here's where we're seeing as a member of this industry, here's where we're seeing opportunity. And then even tying in, as we've talked to our clients, X, Y, and Z, they've told us, they would really love a solution that looks like this. We realized we were perfectly positioned. So almost weaving that story of your position into, and then it's talking about customer discovery. It's getting those brand names in there. And then my last piece of advice would be, I think you're verbally telling a lot of great information. Like the piece that Hall called out was about the quote that you had around subscription versus licensing. And so I actually kind of looked away from the screen and was visualizing, closed my eyes for a second to kind of visualize that. And there may be a few opportunities like that where you can actually leverage your slides to say, here's a divergent path of subscription versus licensing. This is the old way. This is the new way. This is where we're at. So just almost like a couple more diagrams or not word maps, but kind of reflecting visually what you're saying almost in a diagram format might be helpful for people like me who are looking off to the side and visualizing the amazing words that you're saying.
Right. Thank you. That was super helpful. And you're absolutely right on all points here. The only challenge that I had is, I was told that I basically had a little over 6 minutes. I went 8 minutes. And so, I certainly have slides actually on this deck below what you see that address those points, but then
you're always going to be constrained for time.
Right,
Sometimes you only have 4 minutes.
Exactly. And my only question is, if I may, Lisa, is so, I have to, I get conflicting advice all the time about,
I know.
you have to basically get the, who you are up front, like in less than 30 seconds and get to it. Otherwise, people lose interest. And so you're absolutely right that I would love in a conversation to be able to tell a longer story, and it all, it teases out through this conversation. But the problem is if I did that, I'd be, 5-10 minutes into it before I even got to our solution. And so it's like, how, it's a constant struggle of, where do you draw the line? And I guess I've drawn the line as I'd rather get to it quickly. And then when in the discussion part, it all comes out and then people kind of get it. But you're absolutely correct. Thank you for that.
I think just to quickly respond to that, my advice would be like 3 goals for the pitch in general. So what do you want people to walk away with? I would say one of those is your credibility in the industry, the innovation of the solution, and then maybe progress to date, or, because to Hall's point, you have. So whatever those top 3 goals are, and then how does each slide connect with that? And is there a way to, rather than just talking about the industry, even just proceed that and say, as we've worked with clients like blah, blah, blah in the industry, here's what, and it doesn't really take much more time, but you're accomplishing a couple of those goals at the same time. So that's my quick advice. But
Great.
back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so
Great
much.
feedback,
That's awesome.
Lauren. Thank you. And we'll continue with Brad.
And yeah, and my comments are going to be very consistent with what you've heard before, David. First of all, my compliments on a very well thought out presentation. I like your enthusiasm, and you've laid out that you are in a burgeoning space here, and the timing is right for that. So that's that's a very good place to be. Now, having said that, I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult, because I think there are some areas that we need to have more detail on.
Okay.
If we're going to write a check for $2 million.
Yeah.
And just like Hall pointed out, kind of around that, your revenue stream and the sales process, kind of a little bit more detail on how do you get from where we are to where you want to be. My comments are around a little bit more detail on the competition and what is your secret sauce here? Kind of why are you going to be better?
Yeah.
Also, I think it's important at least to mention, is there an IP component here, or can somebody just come in and do this, undercut your price and take your business away? And then the other one where I would like a little bit more detail is when you describe the team. You said 5 exits, that's good, but I think there's you need a little bit more on what's the role of each of these people and how does that play into where you're going as a business.
Great, thank you.
Awesome,
Again,
Brad.
very valid points, and thank you. I'm going to take that all. I love the whole thing on the secret sauce. There's a lot that I haven't said because of just from time constraints. I do have this, in where everybody is located in terms of operational modality. But I will take that to heart.
Great.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Anthony, any feedback for David?
Yeah, thanks. So David, again, also like everyone said, overall, I thought very, very well presented. For me, just a few things that I would hone in on. One is your verbal components of the slide was nicely detailed. It was fast, but it was nicely detailed, but the visual slides were often too much of just kind of background pictures. And for somebody who likes to kind of see things a little bit more, like if you had 4 bullet points, you would have 4 bullet points in the bottom right corner of the slide. You would talk about each bullet point and there'd be a big picture, but it's hard at the speed you're talking and with somebody who's not familiar with your business to get as much information. It's more helpful for you to have like those 4 bullets big in the middle of the screen with one or two of the points that you're making, like this one, right? You rattled off stuff on business regulars, just too much, too fast for us to take in. It would be much better to have those 4 bullets in the center of the screen with a description, with one sentence that you're talking about after each one. So someone can kind of read it and see and listen and hear it and take it in more. But, that showed up in like the problem, the solution, the go-to-market, the traction, like you spoke with the right amount of detail, but it didn't correspond to the slide. So it was just a little bit hard at the speed you were talking to take it in.
Thank you, very valid. And so, I guess just as a refining question, there's others that believe that you should be listened to and just get the emotion out. Again, in a short amount of time. If somebody were to read it, they're not paying attention to what I'm saying. And so
I wouldn't have like whole paragraphs, meaning most of the time we see slides, they're too dense.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
mine's not dense enough.
I think you can achieve something where if you have one bullet point about regulatory, you have a few words afterwards that you hit on. So people who hear better by looking can look and listen.
Yeah.
But I left that slide unsure about if anything you said on it because it was just too fast.
Yeah, it's definitely dense. Absolutely.
That part. The next thing is if you just go to the competition, what I would do, and the next slide. So what I would do is I would have a chart that for your competition slide, I would create a different type of slide where these are your unique attributes. And so it's almost like a grid where you're in one column and everybody else is in a different column, and you show that you hit all of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that would be better at getting the point across than the two slides that you brought in. And then the last slide, the business model slide, was touched on. I just think, again, two things on this. One is it's just a really, I'd like to know a little bit more about which one of these are, all these equally situated to all, how does this break out a little bit? Like you talk about transaction derivative data fees. I'm not sure exactly what derivative can mean different things to different people. And then also, I'd want to understand when I see a chart that is like 9 to 6, I get it, but then from 6 to 80, and kind of what is driving a 13 times, almost 13 times growth,
right,
in 1 year. Like, what is the tipping point that drove that? Unless I understand the tipping point, I don't believe you can go from 6 to 80 in 1 year.
Very valid. Thank you. And the short answer is it's all about volume of transactions on that, and increasing margins at the same time is the short answer. But I appreciate that, and I will address that in future iterations.
Okay, great. That's it.
Awesome. Well, great feedback from everyone. In our remaining time, does anybody who has been listening in to David have any feedback for him? And then also, David, if you wanted to dig in a little bit more to some of the feedback. But first, let's open it up, and feel free to unmute yourself and chime in. You're all entrepreneurs, and I'm sure have some great feedback. Amy, go ahead.
So I went ahead and put them in the chat because I wasn't sure if we would get time. But to go back to Lauren's point about having the camera, could you bring the camera closer as well as scoot your chair closer so we get your face a little bit bigger? That might help with that. And then again, back to the slides and the images. I don't really understand how one slide has runners and is related to your story, and then the next slide has a Chinese pagoda and is related to your story, and then trees with question marks and it's related to your I want to see more consistency of your story
Yes.
through the images, because I'm not sure how a slide of women runners relates to you and then a Chinese pagoda relates to you.
Right. Well, so just as, thank you very much. It's if it's unclear, then it's unclear, and I will take that into account. Just as an explanation, this, I think one of the main competitive advantages is that we have first mover advantage, and so again, trying to illustrate.
I understand that, but when you get to the team slide, you have 5 white men, and this slide has 5 mixed race women, and it doesn't, they don't translate together.
I understand. I'm not a graphic artist, and unfortunately, I put this together myself. We are not Oracle or some Amazon, so we don't have the resources. But very valid comments. I mean, just as an explanation, because we have a little bit of time. I talk about the environment and why now. So I thought that was relatively applicable, but obviously Anthony had other points to this slide, but that was the reason for the trees. The Chinese pagoda, I was looking for a moat. And that was really the point. It wasn't really about the Chinese pagoda. It was really about the moat around it. And obviously it's not clear enough. But valid comments. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Amy. Really important comments about branding and messaging that's sort of more indirect and implicit than it is sort of outwardly, in your face, but nonetheless, super important. Anybody else have some comments for David? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hey, so this is Lauren. I would piggyback off of what Amy said about the slides. It's not the images, they convey the story as you're telling the story, but they don't necessarily go, hand in hand as if somebody were to receive this pitch deck in an email, I think the images don't necessarily convey what it is that you're trying to convey as much as, again, to echo what the other Lauren said, you are a phenomenal speaker. I mean, you did really well from the speaking perspective. You just want to, and it may be worth investing in. While you may not be a graphic designer, it may be worth investing in some time with an actual graphic designer.
Right.
Yeah, and so the other thing I'd say about the slides is I was sort of surprised, and I apologize, I jumped in a little bit late, but one of the things I was surprised about was that your slides don't have your company branding on each slide. And your name. Again, I don't know, I'll hear from the experts, but that was something that I was surprised about as well.
Okay, anybody else with some feedback for David? Any of our judges have some response to anything that's been said or any follow-up?
Then I would say 2 things. One is just this question of how much information to put in relative to the time.
Yep.
And I think every pitch has different lengths associated with it. And you have to look at your audience. You have to look at what the goal of the pitch is. And then you have to kind of adjust the pitch accordingly. So I think you look at each speaking engagement, not kind of trying, not trying to take the exact same pitch. And you look, is this in front of an audience of people where you're going to have 20 minutes to pitch or 15 minutes to pitch and then 45 minutes for Q&A by that group? Is this where you've got 4 minutes? And so I think you do adjust, you do adjust your pitch to the situation, and you practice at different length levels. And sometimes you can't get everything in. What you're looking for in these pitches is you want somebody who hears it to be interested to ask for more.
Yes, and you know what? That's absolutely I was just about to respond if you didn't mention that point. That's the whole point of this, is really not to give everybody the entire story that I could ever tell them. It's really about getting to that next date, to that next conversation. And so I guess I purposely didn't include as much as I could have, obviously for time purposes, but also because I'd rather capitalize on a conversation where I can talk through the issues, and hopefully my experience and and such will come through stronger than pictures ever will.
And I think I'm hearing, as I listen to comments, that this may be one of those cases where you've got a lot of great content, you present it in a strong way, and that kind of investing a little bit, if you're able to kind of have a set of slides that kind of is as strong as the rest of what you have,
Right.
may be very helpful, because I did kind of hear that comment, different aspects of the slides from a number of people who gave feedback today, which is an easier thing to address than other types of challenges, either fundamental to the business or fundamental to what you're presenting.
Right. Great.
Absolutely. And along those lines, I've included in the chat, one of our partners is Heather Lawver of Perfectly Pitched. And actually last month's Pitchmasters, she did a whole workshop on the deck itself. I've included the YouTube link in the chat. I highly recommend everybody taking a look at that. And then David, if you're interested in connecting with Heather, she's very reasonable. She does incredible work. And as Anthony mentioned, that's an easy problem to fix. So happy to make an introduction there. Well, we really appreciate everybody joining us today. It's a good thing, David, that we didn't have anybody else. So much good stuff to discuss. But want to thank you for participating today, and thank our guest judge, Hall Martin from 10 Capital. Please check out 10 Capital. Hall, if you want to put your contact information in the chat, or that would be great. They have incredible resources for entrepreneurs that are raising capital. Lots of workshops and events just like we do. I highly recommend you checking it out. And thank you to Maryland Tech Council, Brad and Pam, for being with us and our partnership. We truly appreciate you always. Same with SeedSpot and Lauren. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to having you at future events. On behalf of Anthony and I and Next, powered by Shulman Rogers, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Please check out in the chat also other links on how to stay in touch with Next, as well as our future events on our events page, or sign up to receive our alert. Thank you all so much, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.